Welcome back to the Running on Grass podcast. I am your co-host, Logan Pribino, here with Eamon O'Toole. How are we doing this morning, Eamon?
I'm having a fantastic morning, Logan. We had a monster rain last night, which to me means 6/10, but it was enough that lightning and thunder and rain on the roof woke me up. We had a great shower about 4 o'clock this morning, and then it moved on up valley to our mountain place, and it sounds like they got hammered with it too. So pretty exciting day here because we've had a long summer with very little rain.
That is awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. We're going to have a birthday cake about it later.
I don't blame you. We caught a rain yesterday on our south farm, but up north, it's not pretty. Our cover crops are barely hanging on. The nice thing about those cover crops like that, since you're not producing grain, it handles that stress a lot better. The corn actually looks decent at this point, but we're gonna need a rain here in the next week to keep things moving along. The pastures are pretty dried up as well. There's some chances this week, so I'm hoping we get to join you in the birthday cake later this week.
Hopefully my rain that hit here will make it all the way over to you, and it'll be just the same one. I hope the lightning doesn't come with it. I had guys checking stuff that's at higher elevations today, and then also my pivots. That's what I'm the most worried about. Last summer, we didn't get a lot of lightning, but I lost 2 pivots to lightning last year, and we had to do a bunch of fixing. So I'm hoping that did not happen and get any pivots last night.
No, I hear you on that. Those things are expensive.
Yeah. So, well, let's get into the beast of what's going on. We've got this whole world has shifted on us in the last 24, 48 hours, something like that.
Yeah, we are going to hit on a market recap. I did some reading yesterday afternoon on the back patio, read all my marketing reports and kind of got up to speed on that. And obviously the market's, just collapsed here in, over the last several weeks, and especially yesterday, a limit down. But want to talk about that. And then I also want to talk about what's happening in the AI space. There's been some talk that we have entered Singularity or AGI, and I can kind of hit on what that means. And then we can talk about what that means for ranching. I think there's a lot of producers out there chasing cows and not paying attention to the AI space. And the AI space is, the biggest thing going. And I just want to hit on that. And I want to just hit on what that could mean for the farms and ranches of the future.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And I had an intern who just finished up his internship. He had to get back to his real job, but he sent me an email to that effect yesterday of, being an ag major, what is that going to mean for his future and what should he be preparing for? So I think hopefully we can help answer that question for him also.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, tell me what you're seeing in the markets here, what these numbers mean, and then we can talk about Mexico and imports.
Well, first, let's do the East Coast shout out.
Yeah, for sure.
We're dry, and PRF creates a lot of value for our operation when we're dry like this. As I said, we cashed one of our checks last week, and East Coast can help you with that PRF policy, and they can analyze it for you. As we're trying to manage through a drought, it's sure nice to have that PRF insurance. And it was designed to manage this risk and should be customized for every ranch, be that in Nevada or Nebraska. East Coast works to understand, accurately map, and provide personalized data for any rancher we work with, so they can make an informed decision about coverage. Visit eastcoastgroup.com or email info@eastcoastgroup.com to learn more. And again, that's JW Wood and Jen Livesley, 2 ranchers themselves that can help you out.
Yeah, Ladder Ranch has been using LRP for a long time, and it's a great product.
All right, market, what's been happening? Give us the overview, Eamon.
Well, I'll just say futures got hammered. So live cattle were down $1.85 to over $6 across the entire board.
And the deferreds on feeder cattle were limit down. The limit now is $10.75.
Yeah, so if you were playing in the futures, God bless your soul. I hope that you slept last night, and I hope that you're, still with us and working at trying to regain your losses.
It's always exciting, isn't it?
Boy, this is I don't know if I've personally paid attention enough to ever see this thing bounce the way it's bounced over the last several months. It's just, we're living in a volatile world and things are all over the board.
Yeah. It has been crazy. My hedges are in the money. I am positive on those, just to show you how far out of whack I was.
Yeah. Well, Like I've told you before, I've never felt like I was smart enough to play with that kind of money. So I do not play with hedging, but I have used a lot of the other programs like East Coast sends out, but I have never gotten into the wild world of hedging.
It's, as I said before, it's difficult to do. It's very difficult to manage your risk using that tool because it just, the margin call and the swings have just been insane. I remember, so we started hedging it was 308 last year, and 308's the Western Nebraska area code. And I'm like, I'm going to take that as a sign. Like, we're going to start. If I have a 3 handle on these bad boys, I'm going to be pleased. And, we layered in and we had some, 360 as well. But yeah, started at 308. So still have a way to go on those bad boys.
Yeah. So it wasn't exactly a science. You're reading a sign from God at 308 and that being your area code.
Yeah. I
Perfect.
should have waited to, 360 should have been the one.
Yeah. Well, and the folks that are paying attention to box beef, choice finished around 361 to 363, which was also down on the week. So
yeah, the beef thing. And I was reading the David Hales newsletter, and he really focuses on the beef, and it's just not been good. It's been lower every week since, Q2. We didn't have that 4th of July rally that can happen. And it's just taken a major slide. And it's not good because the beef is where the real dollars enter the entire cattle complex.
Yeah, it was super interesting yesterday evening. I was at an event and there were a couple guys, and I mean, they're oil field guys, but their families have ranches, and they both were like, man, you're about to drive me out of the beef eating world, as expensive as this stuff's getting. And I'm thinking, boy, if a Wyoming guy is talking like that, then we're really starting to see some cultural shift in the beef world.
Yeah, I was reading this tweet this morning from Vance Crowe, and it's a graph from AP, and it's grocery shopping putting a strain on family budgets, and it just goes wild in 2020. Obviously, the price of purchase for home use rose 33% from 2019 through June of 2026. Consumers are now buying fewer of their favorite foods for less food overall. And Vance Crowe said, "This is everything forever. The government prints money instead of sending you a tax bill. So we now all pay for the printing with the cost of everything."
Nailed it.
Yeah, inflation is here to stay as long as the federal government is a debt holder, which is a guaranteed for the duration of our life.
Yeah, I saw a thing the other day that said the U.S. now is spending more than its national GDP for the first time since World War II.
Saw that too.
If that doesn't put it in perspective, the entire economy was falling on its face around the world. And that was the last time that the United States was in a position like we're in today. Scaramucci the other day talked about why was the United States so powerful in the 50s after we come out of World War II. And well, the rest of the world had all been bombed. We were the only place that had any manufacturing and all of those opportunities left. Everybody else was just trying to rebuild their countries.
Yep. And we were already positioned to for that and had the bodies too as well.
Yeah. And our country had a work ethic like we won't ever see again, likely.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that the AI thing we're going to hit on later is really going to play into that work ethic.
Yeah. Well, let's bounce back here a little bit on the border reopening and where you think that's going to take us into the future. It's going to be the Douglas, Arizona port at the Sonora, and there's lower screwworm risk there. So what does that mean? Big picture, starting slow and then possibly ramping up depending on what we see.
Well, I think that the futures are trying to price that in right now. It's not positive, and there's a bunch of different producers. There's a lot of, it's going to be a great thing for the southern Texas feed yards that have been mostly empty, but for, northern cow-calf guys or stock operators like us, it's negative. And I did share with Eamon, this was fascinating, but when the border closed, the feeder cattle futures were at $2.43 or $2.43. So since the border had been closed, we've seen a lot of feeder cattle price appreciation, a massive upside. And I don't know where it goes.
You know who had a big jump in their shares? Tyson and JBS, 6 to 8%.
Yes. What percent were they up?
6 to 8%.
Jeez. Yeah. Good news for them, especially
Yeah.
them.
So as usual, nobody can, not a rising tide does not lift all ships.
And they're losing less money than they have. I think they're down to losing $100 last week. This week, it should be even more positive.
Yeah. And I was the first guy to jump on the train, upset about how much money those guys were making when we were all taking it in the shorts. But as we've seen, those guys can't lose money forever and us expect to have a place to get animals killed. So I think it's important that we realize that there is a relationship there, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. And the fact that we haven't seen a plant close has been a miracle. With the losses that they've sustained, it's just been honestly a miracle that we haven't lost one.
Well, I guess lost more. Yeah, we lost Lexington, but then what's it called? Sustainable came online shortly after. So it kept a lot of those people in work and not a terrible commute for them. So that was a positive for the industry. But now I think, let's try and look at the long term of the Mexican cattle stuff and it might bring us a little bit back more to more normalcy. And I don't think we're going to last forever in those high prices. It's probably where we all need to be. And it's where our cost structures are built into what the prices have been at. But long term, we've got to figure out how we can all live in this symbiotic world with Tyson and JBS and all the other packers so that we can all stay in business because we literally all need each other.
Yep. It's a delicate dance. And the cow-calf man has had the leverage here for at least a few years. Although my dad, he came over for dinner Sunday and we were calculating what if you owned a 1,000 or just say a 100,000 head feed yard just for a standard deal. We calculated the amount of money that you made over the last 4 years if you didn't do any sort of risk management or hedging. And let me tell you, there were a lot of zeros. My dad, he was like, initially, he's like, it's got to be close to $1 billion. It wasn't, but it can be measured in what we came to. It was pretty close to $250 million is what you would have made feeding cattle for the last 4 years if you were unhedged. And there are very few people that are able to take on that kind of risk.
That's an incredible opportunity if you're willing to put your neck out there and also be willing to have it cut off.
Yes. And you are exactly right. And so it'd be kind of interesting to see. We're still short cattle. We had that July 1 cattle on feed report, and it shows a modest uptick, realizing that the rebuild this year or this time in the cattle cycle is going to be uniquely slow.
Right. If we go down and you look at those guys that are ranchers, just like you and me are down on the southern border, those guys have been kind of stuck for a while. They haven't had animals coming in. So there's some outfits out there that are hurrying too, I think, that, while the rest of us have been enjoying these high prices, they've just kind of been sitting in the sand waiting for animals that they could get. Because you can't just take something that you run or something that I run and send it down to Arizona and think that animal's going to make a living.
No, you are exactly right. What are some of the implications of the border reopening for you? Have you thought through any of them?
Well, last year I was supposed to sell in August and I moved it up to July because I was really smart like that and lost probably $300 a head in not selling and or not waiting a month. And then this year I'm like, I'm going to be really smart and I'm going to sell in August like I should have last year, thinking this thing's got to keep going up because we don't have the numbers. And the guys that sold at the steamboat sale at Week in the Rockies, I think, are looking really smart right now.
So I talked to Jay Nordhausen yesterday, and he said the Superior sale, Video Royale, started yesterday, and calves were $100 a hundredweight less than they were at the steamboat sale.
We're in a place now that we can handle that $100 a head loss. And there's years that I remember selling calves for 98 cents when I was in high school and we were at the Superior sale. And I think it was in Denver at the time. And you walked out of there thinking, is that good enough to make it one more year? So at least we're in a place that everybody can say, okay, $100 back, I'm still in a really good place.
Yeah. Yeah. But everyone's fear, and this has happened, we've had these breaks during this rally. We've had these breaks frequently, typically in the summer or the fall. And, the fear on everyone's mind is, oh, is this the 2015, 2016 free fall when there was no bottom and it just fell in a free fall. And everyone has that PTSD being like, is this it? And it just gets people so cautious. And, so we see these drastic price reductions because people are genuinely concerned.
What does that mean for us with all these heifers that we've bred?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
On a scale, not like 50 or 100, like there's a lot of heifers sitting out there that we just pulled the bulls on. And I think we saw some $4,500 heifers sell for an October delivery at the steamboat sale. And I don't know of anybody out there today would want to go buy a $4,500 heifer, bred heifer.
No. Yeah. Fortunately, we got you and I have a long runway, and trying to sell those bred heifers in the fall is always a challenge pricing wise. But I will say that David Hales in his newsletter, he said, this thing, he is long-term bearish cattle, but he's like, it's overdone where we are today in the futures market. It just seems to be pricing in too much of the negative news, especially with the July 1 cattle on feed report being neutral, as he called it. So I think we, this is a short-term low and it will go higher, but who knows?
Yeah. And the fact that they're not talking about that we're losing 5,000 acres a day to development around this country. That is negative news, but it's a positive if you still have land and can run animals on it because you have a place for them where there's so many acres that don't exist anymore. And those numbers, I don't think we can ever get back to, 30 million is going to be tough. We're at 28 and a half today. That's a lot of cattle to put on less ground than we've ever had before every day.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we get to 30 million as well, with the whole beef on dairy. It's really affected the number of cows that we need to produce cows in cow-calf land just because of the volume that comes through the beef on dairy now that wasn't there really 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest changes for the whole industry is how many beef on dairy animals there are. I ran into Tucker Brown at Shire Frontier Days and we visited for a minute and then on the way back, I saw on his feed that he stopped in, and I'm guessing that plant in Southwest Nebraska, or not the plant, but the feed yard, and saw a lot of beef on dairy.
Yeah,
So,
it's big. And here's kind of an interesting tidbit, and I pulled it out because I wanted to share it with you and our listeners. But Hales, one of the things that he talks about is that so everyone's looking at the number of heifers on feed, and what he is saying is because of the beef on dairy, there are possibly 500,000 beef dairy cross heifers on feed that are considered beef heifers by the USDA. And so if you're looking at the number of heifers on feed, which looks high for a herd that is supposedly rebuilding, but it's overinflated because of the beef on dairy heifers.
I hadn't thought of that point there. And you go back to this spring, and you and I have talked about it several times, is just in Torrington, Wyoming, 15,000 head of basically heifers went through in a day that were, I think, going to be bred and ended up becoming beef cattle because of drought.
Yeah, and I think the drought is also affecting people's psyche. When you talk, let's go back to talking about selling heifers. We need it to rain. We need rain as much as we need the markets when you're selling a bred heifer, because the bred heifer supply might not be there this fall and this winter, but if it rains, people are going to want to be stocking their ranch no matter what the markets are doing. If you don't have cattle and you got a ranch, there's no way to convert that into dollars without the cattle component.
Yeah, and you and I send that thing back and forth every week or every other week on the states with the most drought, and Nebraska and Wyoming are right up there. I think my state's like 2/3 or 3/4 of the states in bad drought to severe drought, and lots of fires kicking up everywhere out our way. And I saw a friend of mine put up there's several fires in Crook County, which is up near Devil's Tower and Utah. And we had one actually pop up just south of me. It started at it was 500 acres. The next morning it was 1,600, but they were able to get it out. But fire is just becoming a major component to ranching out here in Wyoming.
Yeah, I'm looking at the drought monitor right now, and D3, which is the extreme drought, is most of the Nebraska Panhandle, the central Sandhills, northeast Nebraska. Looks like it's most of Wyoming. Where you are, it's not as bad according to the drought monitor, but I mean, just most of Colorado. It's certainly across the west, it's dry.
That's because it picked up my 6/10 I got last night.
That is nice. It's not reflected on this.
Well, the other piece about like even the program we're doing or that anybody else is doing, that's whether they're running their animals all the way through or just got to put some pounds on them, is corn's come up. Corn is not where it was. Oil's been bouncing from 80 to 100 over the last several weeks. So it's not really holding anywhere compared to normal where it'll sit at, $75 for 3 months. It's really bouncing $20 day in and day out. So
yeah, there's a lot of volatility in the grains.
Yeah, but you and I were talking about, what were you, 370 corn, and now we're at 475 today?
Yeah, before basis.
Yep. So those change our costs a lot when we talk about if we need to hold our heifer somewhere and if corn doesn't get cut and I start sending cattle to you and you don't have pasture to put them on, then they've got to go in a feed yard, and that changes the cost structure of what it takes to get that heifer to when we want to sell them.
Yeah, it does affect it. And the whole stalker segment is largely driven by the price of corn. It's very difficult to be a stalker operator when corn is under the cost of production, just because people value those pounds that you add on less. When, back when corn was $8, it is nice to be a stalker operator because those feedlots, your grass is worth a lot more because those feedlots value those pounds at a significantly higher dollar.
Makes sense. I'd never thought of it that way, but I live so far from the feedlots that it's generally hard for me to conceive what they're doing day in and day out. I think that's a big advantage you have living so close to foot feeders there in Imperial, is you really know when you drive by it almost every day and you're like, how do I get more ability and price structure out of my animals for what they're doing?
Yeah, that is. We do live in completely different worlds.
Yeah. Well, let's bump on and talk about some tech and what that's going to mean for ranchers. And I'll read the quote first, and then you can tell me what that means to you and where we're heading. Sam Altman said, "We're in the singularity." Hassabis said, "Foothills of the singularity." Musk, "We have entered the singularity and just the very early stages of it." Wang said, "We've achieved AGI." What does all that mean?
So I wanted to hit on this because I think a large part of our audience are cattle chasers and they're not paying attention to tech. I have friends that work in tech. Singularity is when AI goes from being narrow to broad, to where it can reason, understand, and it could be a veterinarian. It could be, it could do a human job better than a human. Whereas narrow AI is just say, hey, AI, like on halter. It's like, control this cow, and it can do a good job at that, but it doesn't have the broad sense. And so singularity and artificial general intelligence is when it becomes broad. And what happens as a result of that is things change very rapidly from this point on, because the growth and understanding is going to become outside of humans. So the AI will be leading the charge in most of the advances from now on. Mathematics, film, and art, if we let it. I can't remember which. I think it was Sam Altman was meeting with Trump later this week to go over this and just try to decide as a country, what parameters we're going to put on this thing, because it's going to get out of control very fast. And my friends in tech say that the smart people that they follow said this is the last normal year. 2026 is the last normal year that we have. Beyond 2027, it's going to get funky, and AI will be doing increasingly more for us. I mean, think about it. It'll be solving the world's problems, outside of human thought and understanding. So it's a significantly large thing that is happening, and the leaders in the space are saying we're there, or we're just about there.
I know I'm using AI more than probably 75% of ranchers, and you being one of those 25% that's using it a lot more than I am. And I'm trying to figure out how to use it more. knowing that that's the world we're heading into. But I sit and struggle with, especially watching my kids who aren't using AI, at least not on purpose. They don't have Grok. They don't have Perplexity. I don't even think they have chat. And I know that I have to pull up chat just to help them with their homework because it's been a long time since I've messed with a parallelogram. And I have to figure out what that means again and how you measure that. But it's a wild time because who knows how you're going to use it. And these kids, some are using it, some of them aren't using it. My kids are very handy in the old world that I grew up in, and they rope and they ride and they're, can do all those things. But I worry that I'm not keeping them up to speed on these things, which are going to be a major factor in their life.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's quite the dilemma. I mean, do you expose it extensively or as little as you can? And, what does the world that they enter into after schooling, what does that look like for them? I've been told that no one is hiring junior coders, junior accountants, all those junior positions. They're trying to have AI do those and fairly successfully. It's successfully doing a lot of junior positions across the board. And, that's the jobs of the recent college graduates. Here's one thing. I had an anthropology professor visit the ranch to do some interview to talk about how multi-generational people think about grass management. It was very interesting just to have that conversation with an anthropologic thinking versus grass management or economics. It was very enjoyable. But we were in the side by side and we were looking at cattle. And so she's a professor at UNL, has been for at least a decade. And I had a lot of questions for her. And UNL has stopped giving out homework because it has to be done on site. If they send it to the kids to do at home, the vast majority of them are using AI to complete it. And here's the most interesting thing is UNL for many years pointed to their computer science program as they said to students, if you want a job, go into computer science. Not only is it the highest job placement, it's the highest average salary. And that was true for over a decade. And they just highlighted that program for the, hey, if you want to be a guaranteed job when you graduate, go into this program. They are going to the computer science majors right now and saying, you need to leave this program. No one is hiring computer science majors. And this started 3 years ago. They could see it in the numbers that it was like, oh, man, but it was drastically less job placement, drastically less on the salary. And that started 3 years ago. And this last year, it is so low that they are literally going to the computer science majors. They're saying, get out now while you can.
And what are they going to do?
I don't know. Study English.
Anthropology.
Write poetry.
Yeah. So I had an intern that just finished his summer internship up, and his name's Nate Church, and great guy. I think he learned a lot about how Halter works, and that was one of the big pushes with the interns this year is getting them educated on halters so that they will be able to come out of the ag school and corporate ranches or other, ranchers that are looking for somebody that already knows how to use this, which with the aging ranchers, this is a huge opportunity to come hire young people that have been working on halter, on scale, and they know how to use it way better than you'll ever be able to because they've grown up with electronics, with technology, and now you could hire these kids that can jump right out and know how halter works. But he texted me yesterday, he said, curious as someone who will graduate with an ag business degree, if you guys have thought about any ag jobs that you guys feel are secure or have a bright future with the development of AI and ag and just in general.
Here's my take on it, and then I want to hear yours. I think the ranching jobs are some of the last jobs to go because it is enjoyable. People love ranching. It's the Marlboro Man lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like it's just, there's something broadly appealing about the work that we do. So I think that the ranching jobs, and I'm maybe way biased here, and so I want to get your take, but I think they're some of the last jobs to be taken over by AI just because people will want to do them.
I agree with you. Generally, people in agriculture have purpose, and I think that's something missing in this day and age, in this, especially this generation. Kids don't know what they're going to do. They don't even know what AI is going to mean in their life, and it's going to control it. they don't know what jobs to go to college for anymore because all of those jobs can now be done by AI cheaper and more reliably and arguably better. So agriculture, like you said, is going to be one of the last of the frontier of real normal. This is the last year of normalcy. And I think agriculture holds on to that a little longer. Obviously, we're all using Halter, and a salesman for Halter told me the other day that they have 100,000 callers on in Montana, and they haven't been out that long. What, 2-3 years really that Halter's
Yeah.
been around?
In the US market.
Yeah, and they're growing exponentially just in the last, I think, year. I know of a lot of people that they're calling me, asking me what I think of Halter. So you'll be able to monitor, you'll be able to see who's sick. Do we get to a place that the halter or the collar itself carries LA200 or carries Draxin or something in it? Maybe. But I think that you still are going to need that human component to manage cattle health. And in an operation like mine, like your heifers are in a pretty large pasture system now. We're out of the meadows. We've used the meadows that we could use for the first and second trip. They need a little bit of rest until we come back on. So I went into some mountain country, and we've really deferred some of that pasture for 2 or 3 years because the fencing is just so awful on it and you can't keep it up, and we have crazy amount of wildlife. But this halter has opened up 1,000 acres for my operation. And we did a bunch of water projects last year, and with having the water availability with the drought and then also having halter on, I can use a lot of country that I couldn't use for last 3 years probably. So I think you're right. Ag's going to be on the back end of, we're all using this technology now, but we're on the back end of it.
Yeah. And so people are going to be thinking, how could it be a threat to ranching? And, when this Optimus comes out and this robot has AGI, artificial general intelligence, it'll be smarter than your vet. It will be a neurosurgeon if you want it to be. And I told my wife, you're the perfect example. You run a labor intensive operation. I mean, you just need bodies, and you need a lot of bodies to operate Ladder Ranch. And imagine if those bodies didn't take PTO, they didn't sleep, and were smarter than the smartest person and the robot costs like 30 grand.
Yeah, which is way cheaper than an employee.
100%. And they're going to be at least 10 times better. So it really is going to affect the labor market, I think, as soon as Optimus comes. And that's the thing about what do get to Singularity or AGI. Things are they're going to happen a lot faster than they have been. It's going to be a rapid expansion.
And think of this, they're going to be able to come out with this, and it's going to have like 4-wheeler tires on it, right? So there's a 4-wheeler, let's just pretend that I replaced half of my labor force that are out, and these guys can go run around and they have tires on them, and I can say, hey, go up and doctor those cattle. You've now taken away the cowboy that needs to be up there managing them, and say, while you're up there, I want you to look for this, this, and this. And they won't even have to go through the whole herd. They'll be able to digitally scan the herd and know all of the things about them, herd health, how many need doctored, and they can take care of that probably faster than, we can with our naked eye.
Yeah. And it's also just hard to wrap your head around the fact that it'll like that the Optimus you send up there will be smarter than your vet. Like you won't need to tell it anything. Like it will tell you the problems that you have.
So what do you think this means for the vet industry as a whole if we're going to have, literally robots that are more intelligent than our vets are?
Doesn't look good. And this is the problem that you run into, is that it is eventually going to be way better than the best that a human could operate. And it'll build robots. Like your robots will build robots.
I think that there's a level of animal husbandry that's important that involves the caring manner, and the animal knows that something cares for it, and actually like a heart to heart, soul to soul feeling that maybe they can make that happen. But I don't understand how that would happen with AI and an
You're being a
Optimus.
little bit altruistic. Have you ever been in a pork barn, Eamon? Jim Pillen made $1 billion by eliminating exactly what you're talking about and integrating the pork industry.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's just my soft nature of liking animals.
And maybe that's what it kind of happens is we operate these ranches almost as like not necessarily dude ranches, but
As a
yeah,
place
like
for people to come
yeah,
have like a real altruistic feeling.
yeah, because you got to think, what are people going to be doing all day?
And the population's just getting bigger.
100%.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were saying you had your dad over and you were running the numbers on, how much money you would have made. And around our dinner table, we talked about the Colorado River and water policy and things like that. Very different ways of looking at the world. But anyway, I don't know. This is changing so fast, like you said before. And I hope you and I can keep up with it. And I really hope our kids can figure out what kind of world they want to live in. And really, with ranching, if you can afford to, then I think there's an opportunity that you can get more and great employees if you decide not to go 100% this direction and you want to hold this old way of doing things.
Yeah. And what I was kind of getting into earlier is, ranching is just such a labor intensive process, more so than anything else. And so like when Optimus comes out, like I think we're gonna have one right away. And it's so labor intensive, the work that we do, especially ladder, that our need for that is massive. A lot more than my farming friends, a lot more than a bank probably doesn't need an Optimus. There's a lot of roles that, you may not need that labor unit. But in ranching, man, we were setting tanks last week, tire tanks and some fiberglass tanks. And we had all of us out there and we were busting our ass all week, operating tractors, moving dirt, setting the tanks, leveling the tanks. It's still just a pretty laborious process. So I do think we'll have a couple robots, but I do think we keep several of the humans.
Right. And what's the Optimist understands what we're looking for stocking rates and, things that you and I, we talked about on the last podcast is, how does your eye get to be trained on how much grass to take? And after we did our field day and we looked at the information that was put together by the interns and pre-measurements, post-measurements, how much we were taking, and we're taking right about where we wanted to be on average. But not any field was exactly where we wanted to be. Everything was either a little over, we didn't take as much, or we took too little, or whatever. But we were right about where we wanted to be. But an optimist would be able to just scan your field and say, okay, we're there. It's time to move.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Another take on this is, when we go into this world that is post singularity, I think owning a piece of grass land is going to be a good thing. You ever heard the phrase, go touch grass?
Yeah.
Having some of that is, I think, going to be very valuable, in my opinion.
Yeah, to be able to go out in nature and see something real and feel something real is going to be,
especially your place, in the mountains and the acres that you're dealing with and the views. I think there's going to be a lot of value in that.
We already see it with the way that Steamboat has grown, and people want that. And the billionaires that live in Florida, or their families don't get to be out in nature and they're basically city kids. And then dad says, hey, let's go out and be in the country. Well, they're going to go buy a place in Steamboat and they're within a half hour of everything they want to be in a car, but still get to live that ritzy Steamboat lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's 100%. And that only expands in the future. There'll be more and more of that.
Yeah. Do you think, this is a little off topic, but do you think that our land values in the last 10 to 20 years have, like what we talked about with our great-great-grandfathers buying $6 an acre land or $1.75 an acre land? And then in the last 10 to 20 years, it seems to me like it's just like 10x'd or something like that.
Yeah. In the last 10 years, ours hasn't appreciated a lot, but in the last 20, it's doubled once or twice. So we saw some massive gains there, especially when rates first got to 3 and guys were running numbers like, oh yeah, I can make that payment. And the interest rate has really tempered that here, the land values.
Yeah, and I've noticed that. We talked about some 4-wheelers and things that we've upgraded on our place recently, and you see those interest rates are just brutal compared to what they used to be. A 4-wheeler payment used to be $100, something like that. Now it's double. It's $200.
Yeah, you talk about owning your bred heifer for a full year. I mean, that's a real cost. The bank's making 6 figures on us just on the heifers.
Yeah, just on the interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting away from where we talk to, but that's what I love about our podcast is that it kind of runs all over the place, and we don't stick to anything that's just like, hey, this is hard and fast what we're talking about today. But I don't know, robotics are going to be a big part of our future, mine especially, like you said. I haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do next year, but I know that my labor situation here at Ladder Ranch already looks different next year because of the use of halter on my operation and how well it works.
What does that look like? How many roles will you eliminate?
That's what I haven't quite figured out, but obviously you and I are in this to not just enjoy touching grass and having manure on our face shipping day and all those things. And like when we shipped your steers and were swallowed 10 pounds of dust that day.
Easily.
So that's not the only enjoyable part of our operation. And so we also like to make a little money at this and try to have enough to do it again next year. And so I think it's going to be significant for me. And
Really?
yeah, it's going to be a huge change if it works.
That's awesome. And you know, the war on overhead costs as a ranch manager, you just always need to just have that in mind. And something like that, you know, that's a major battle in the war of overhead costs.
Yeah, our overheads, as you know, I have not run the numbers, but I would argue that I made more money in 2015 when I had pre-2020 prices than now with the where way calves are even a month ago and what our overheads are today. So what's an employee? $120,000. You give them a pickup and a house and food and all those things. And you start comparing that to having a $30,000 Optimus that is going to do exactly what you tell it to do and not do something stupid that you did not tell it to do, and it caused quite a ruckus. So I think there's, you know, I'm the first person to say I really like having the human factor, but are our costs and the values of our animals going to go up or down depending if we have, like, is that a AI or is that a tool that they use like NHTC and BQA on when you're selling your calves? Is that going to be a tag that your employees are Optimus, and so that they know that they've been handled always exactly the way that they should be handled?
It's an interesting idea. You know, the information that we'll have on these cattle in the future will be a lot. But, you know, and we forget it in times like this, but we are in commodity production. And, you know, if your neighbor's producing it for cheaper, you gotta follow suit, you know, and we're kind of divorced from those times right now, and everyone's overheads get a little high when we're in these high prices. But, you know, man, as a corn or as a grain farmer, I'll tell you, it when it snaps back, it snaps back hard. So you just always got to be thinking, you know, where can I cut costs? How can I produce this for cheaper than my neighbor?
Yeah, and you and I have been having conversations. Are heifers always going to be the game, or are there other opportunities out there with different ages or classes of cattle? And I think those are all the things that all of us need to always be thinking about, because just being a cow-calf guy or just being a yearling guy or, you know, just being a guy that raises bulls, I think that the future rancher is going to have to be so much more nimble than they are today, because just like we were talking about earlier in this podcast, things are snapping around so quickly. And if you can't keep up, then you've got to find whatever product you can put together that will last for the cycle that you can handle that animal.
Agree. And one of my favorite quotes on that is Daryl Peel, who says, you know, being a stocker operator is like being a quarterback. You have to have an array of plays. One play isn't going to win you the game. So, you know, you need to look at a stock operator. You need to be looking at different classes, different weights, different things to buy and sell to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck.
I hope you still have your Daryl Peel signature on your desk there.
I do. Thank you.
That was so great. For those of you, I talked about it earlier and several podcasts ago, but I got to meet Daryl Peel earlier this year. And Logan, being a huge Daryl Peel fan, I went up to him and I asked him for his autograph for Logan, and I gave it to Logan. So Logan has a framed Daryl Peel autograph at his desk.
I do.
Oh, that's great. Well, Logan, let's talk about what we're going to talk about next time.
Yeah, what do you want to discuss next time?
You know, I think we're going to keep seeing some changes in these markets, and it's good to just give an update and talk about where the future's heading. This thing is not done today. it's not done. I mean, we're only on Tuesday. So we've got a lot of changes that can still happen this week. Who knows what's going to happen with Iran? I see they're having a meeting, I think today or tomorrow, with Zelensky and Netanyahu. Trump's going to meet with them and figure out hopefully how to end some wars. And that could change the outlook on every single commodity out there.
Yeah, that would be huge. This war is not good for anyone.
No, especially the people in it. So, well, let's just kind of stop there and we'll see what this week gives us. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about next week. But I'd like to, thank everybody so far. We're really excited about the podcast, and it's done better than Logan and I could have hoped. So we're very appreciative of everybody that's been listening.
Yeah, thanks for following along, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.
All right, keep running on grass.
Adios.